Every crime scene tells a story. Mine smells like leftover ambition and a condiment I can't identify, and frankly, I'm not even going to try.
You're listening to Unbound Off Script. No outlines, no safety nets, just Beth Curry talking about whatever the hell she wants, or whatever the hell you've asked her to uncover. It's unfiltered, it's unpredictable, and it's officially started. Pull up a chair.
Welcome to Unbound Off Script. I don't do this lightly, okay? I want you to know that. When I kind of step back into my forensics role, it's because something's happened that requires training and experience and a willingness to kind of follow the evidence wherever it leads, right? Like no matter how uncomfortable, no matter how confronting, and no matter how much you'd rather just close the door and order pizza, today that place is my kitchen. The evidence is in a Tupperware container. And I've been walking past it for like 14 days, like a damn coward with a forensics degree. Every crime scene tells a story, okay? You just have to kind of know how to read it, the splatter pattern, the timeline, the last known whereabouts, the absence of an alibi, all that kind of stuff. I spent years studying the language of what's left behind. I've consulted on things. I've analyzed evidence. I've lent my credentials to situations of genuine consequence and real human stakes. And I'm telling you, nothing has prepared me for what I found on the second shelf of my refrigerator last Tuesday. Behind the mustard, next to a single-side grape, a container, okay? No label, no date, no explanation. Just dark, suspicious Tupperware vibes from something that used to be food and has since made other arrangements. Now, I think a lesser investigator might have just thrown it away, right? Grabbed it, bagged it, moved on with their life like a person with functional coping mechanisms, but I am not a lesser investigator. I have credentials, I have training, I have a forensics background, and a deeply held belief that the truth matters and that evidence deserves to be properly assessed before any conclusions are drawn, right? So I did what any reasonable, credentialed professional would do. I stared at it for 45 seconds, I put it back, and I closed the refrigerator door. The investigation is ongoing. So let's establish the facts here, okay? The refrigerator in question is a stainless steel freezer on the bottom unit, which sounds lovely, sounds modern and intentional, and I don't know, maybe like something a person with good taste and a functioning sense of domestic optimism would select. And I did select it 11 years ago, standing in an appliance showroom with the energy of someone who believes the refrigerator could be a fresh start, a statement, if you will. A choice that said something meaningful about who I was and who I intended to be. It was fun. I love shopping for appliances and change, basically. But you know what? I have hated it every single day since. Stainless steel, for those of you who don't know, and God bless you if you don't know, stay in that innocence, okay? It's an absolute gift. Stainless steel is a finish that shows every fingerprint, every water spot, every casual moment of human contact with the forensic clarity of an actual crime scene. You touch it once, just once, and now there's evidence. A full-ass handprint, 5 fingers, perfectly rendered right there on the door, like you just booked yourself into processing. You need a special cloth to clean it. Not just any cloth, a specific cloth purchased separately, because of course it is. Because the refrigerator that costs what this refrigerator costs cannot be wiped down with a paper towel like a normal surface made by reasonable people. And if you use the wrong cloth, if you grab whatever's nearby because you're a human being with a life and limited patience for appliance-specific textile requirements, you've just smeared the crime scene. It's worse now. You've compromised the evidence. You are, at this point, the perp. I want that noted for the record. Now, the freezer on mine is on the bottom because someone somewhere in a design meeting that I was not invited to and would have had significant notes for decided this was the direction. This was the innovation. Freezer on the bottom. That person's never used a freezer, I don't think. The drawer pulls out, and I use pulls out generously because in my case, what it actually does is, grudgingly extends while making a sound that suggests it's doing an enormous personal favor for me or something. And you squat down. You squat down like you're proposing marriage to an appliance you actively resent. Like you're paying respect to something that has earned none of your respect, right? And once you're down there, kind of committed to that position, you're presented with something I guess I would call a spatial puzzle that I can only describe as the work of someone who finds joy in the suffering of others, I guess. Nothing fits correctly, right? The ice cream is behind the thing, and the thing is under the other thing, and there's probably a bag of edamame in the back corner that I bought during a wellness phase that I no longer remember having. A phase during which I apparently believed that edamame was a snack that I would eat, that I was someone who kept edamame on hand, that this was a version of myself that was going to stick. It did not stick, guys. The edamame remains. It's been there longer than some friendships I've maintained. I won't take questions about the edamame. The drawer does not close all the way if you put too much in it, okay? My kid is beyond frustrated with this particular fridge. The drawer does not close all the way if you put too little in it. The drawer, and I need you to really hear this part, okay? It does not close all the way. Full stop. That's its like entire setting. That's the one consistent, reliable thing about it. In 11 years, through every season, through every damn configuration of frozen goods I've attempted in there, through every rearrangement and consolidation and moment of genuine spatial creativity, I'd say, the drawer has never once closed completely. It just sits there. A little bit on the edge where that seal is just slightly open, unbothered, like it made a decision, and it's at peace with it. I'm not at peace with it. I've simply stopped fighting it, which is, I don't know, not the same thing. And I want to be clear about that distinction. I don't know. I think the refrigerator deserves its own section because I believe in thorough documentation, and also because I have feelings about this that have been building for a decade, and this is my podcast. So, whatever. The fridge, again, is 11 years old. It's never once expressed gratitude. It just hums. Not in a pleasant, ambient, white noise kind of way. It hums at a very specific frequency that exists on a register only audible when the house is completely silent, which is somehow always at 2 a.m., which I can only interpret as intentional. It's not a mechanical hum. It's a commentary of sorts. It's a low, sustained editorial on the choices I've made. I don't know. There's an ice maker in it that's not connected, so I don't know, every 60 seconds, every 60, 40, 60, I don't know. There's like this odd bang that comes from the fridge. I don't know. Sometimes I hear it and I think, no, that's not the same bang. So I open the freezer drawer and squat again, resenting, and I'm reminded that there's no ice in the ice maker. And it's left no note, no explanation, no estimated timeline for resolution because I haven't connected it to a water source. So it's not performing. And it's moving on. It's making this loud bang every 60 seconds and then moving on, It's just odd. Like, I know that if I connect it to water, it's going to make an enormous sound every 60 seconds instead of just like this random bang. That big sound that implies something meaningful has almost happened. I've been in a place with one of those fridges, but sometimes you hear that noise and then there's just like no ice, right? Like it's just a sound hanging in the air in the drawer that doesn't close all the way. And, I'm standing there at 2 a.m. listening to a fridge humming its opinions at me. The interior light works perfectly though. And this is somehow the most sinister quality of the entire damn unit. There is no darkness to hide in. There's no ambiguity. There's no plausible deniability of, oh, I just couldn't see it. The light's immediate, it's complete, and it's merciless. You open the door and everything is illuminated in this odd glow. It's not even a glow you would see in your everyday life. It's just this strange shade of purpley blue. Can't describe it, but everything's illuminated. The container, that grape, the 3 different open jars of the same condiment that you somehow didn't notice were duplicates when you opened the third one. All of it's perfectly lit, like a very mundane gallery show curated by your own worst instincts or something. I've walked past this container that I started with here 14 times this week. I counted. Not because I'm obsessive, because I'm thorough, right? I'm a professional. There's a difference, and I'll explain it to anyone who asks and several people who don't. This is where cold cases get complicated. Memory is unreliable, okay? Witnesses are compromised. Timelines shift under scrutiny. In this case, the primary witness is me. And I have a well-documented and entirely self-aware history of telling myself I will deal with something later, and then simply not doing that. Not because I lack intention. The intention is always there, always robust, well-meaning, completely unaccompanied by follow-through. It happens to you too, and you know it. So what we know about this particular situation I started the show with, there was a meal, okay? Something was cooked, a real meal, the kind you make when you're feeling capable and domestic, and like a person who has things together. Something was saved, responsibly saved, because wasting food is wasteful. And if you live in Canada, you know how much groceries cost now. Nate, who lives in Hawaii, where everything is ridiculously overpriced simply because they are on an island far, far away from a mainland. He is even shocked by the pricing here in Canada. Anyway, wasting food is wasteful, and we're not wasteful people, and we are intentional people who plan ahead and eat leftovers like adults. Someone, me, the suspect, who we have established, and we aren't being coy about it, put it in a container with every intention of eating it the next day, right? You've done it. It's happened to you too. And then the next day came, and we ordered pizza. And so did you. This has happened to you too. Not because the leftovers weren't viable. They were probably perfectly viable, but pizza was right there. It was available, requiring no squatting, no assessment, no confrontation with anything that's been sitting since Tuesday. And sometimes the path of least resistance, I think, is probably a large pepperoni, a complete moral compromise on the leftover situation. And so began the slow, quiet tragedy, the second shelf, right? It's happened to you. But I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, that would never happen in my house. I'm on top of my refrigerator. I label things. I have a system. I rotate stock like a small, efficient grocery operation, and nothing in my refrigerator is a mystery to me at all. And to that, I say, I'm genuinely happy for you. Truly, I mean that. I mean it a little sarcastically, because nobody is fully on top of their refrigerator. Nobody has a complete audit at all times of every container and every leftover, every optimistic purchase made on a Thursday when they briefly believed they were the kind of person who makes homemade soup on a weeknight. If you think you are, open the door right now. Right now, while you're listening to this, just open it. There it is. There's the thing. There's your container or your bag of something. Or your produce drawer situation, or your 17 mostly empty bottles of salad dressing lined up in the door because you finished one and bought another, and then you found the first one behind something, and now you have two, and none of them are the same, and you can't remember which one you actually like. You're welcome. We can sit this together. I'll wait, because it's true. Yeah, I want to address the door of the fridge because it's its own crime scene and it deserves its own section of this podcast. The door of a refrigerator is where optimism goes to become archaeology, I guess. There are currently in my refrigerator door 11 bottles and jars of various condiments and sauces and what I can only describe as intentions. And some of them I can identify and some of them I can identify but cannot explain the volume of. If that makes sense. There's three open jars of the same brand of salsa at varying levels of completion, each opened at a moment when I apparently could not locate the previous one. Like, why did I even buy it? But I bought it because I thought I didn't have any. So I just simply started a new one rather than engaging with the problem directly. That's not a food storage issue. This is a personality profile, and none of it holds a candle to my mother, if I can say that. So I'd like to call my first and only witness my mother. My mom ran a household, the way a seasoned detective runs a precinct, with authority, with a system, with an organizational philosophy that was entirely her own and which the rest of us simply lived inside of without being fully briefed on the details. Now, before Crew was born, Brian and I moved into my parents' house briefly so that we could save up some money for a down payment for our first house. And this was entertaining. Okay. Things happened in my parents' house. Meals appeared and laundry was done and surfaces were clean. And if you asked how any of it worked, the answer was essentially, it works because I make it work and you're welcome. And also, can you move? I need to get to the sink kind of thing. She was a force, a completely unglamorous, deeply competent, entirely matter-of-fact force. And in her refrigerator, her very normal, very white, very sensibly non-stainless steel refrigerator with the freezer on top where God and the engineers of common sense intended it to be, with a door that opened and closed like a door is supposed to, with shelves that held things in a straightforward relationship with gravity, she kept ketchup. All of the ketchup. Every variety, every stage of completion. Ketchup in quantities that suggested either bulk purchasing agreements or a fundamental distrust of a world in which ketchup might one day not be available. Don't know, but this is where the humor came in, and Brian and I looked forward to this every time. Fridge cleaning day was an event. It wasn't a chore, it was an actual occasion, okay? It arrived without a set schedule, which in retrospect I think was probably a pretty big power move on her part. You don't know when it was coming. Right? You just knew that one day you'd walk into the kitchen and every single thing that had been in the fridge was now on the counter. And your mother was right there with a cloth, the right cloth, always the right cloth. She knew instinctively. And you were not to touch anything. And you were not to ask questions. Although we just sat there and laughed. And if you needed something to eat, you could either wait or you could figure it out. And either way, she was busy. Everything came out, every shelf wiped, every drawer was emptied, inspected, held up to the light of maternal judgment, I guess, and returned or discarded accordingly, right? It was thorough. It was systematic. It was, looking back, genuinely impressive. And every single time, without exception, without variance, as reliable as anything in this world has ever been, there were no fewer than 14 bottles of ketchup on the counter. Not 13, sometimes 15, but not 13, no fewer. 14, consistent, like it was regulated, like the ketchup had its own governing body and minimum household requirements. And my mother was simply maintaining compliance. Some bottles probably had a 1/4 inch left in them, just sitting at the bottom, technically not empty, which meant they could not in good conscience be thrown away because there was still ketchup in them. And wasting food was not something that happened in that house, not on her watch, not ever. Some of them were duplicates, 2 or 3 of the same bottle, opened simultaneously at different points for reasons that have been lost to history and probably weren't reasons as much as moments. One bottle, and I say this with complete confidence and zero ability to prove it, predated me. That bottle may have predated the refrigerator. It may have been a family heirloom. I don't know. It may have been load-bearing. But she'd line them all up on the counter, all 14. She'd look at them in the way that you look at a situation you've somehow arrived at, again, despite your best efforts. Not surprised, not really amused, but just kind of assessing, right? Working through the logic, trying to understand one more time how 14 bottles of ketchup happened to a person who only ever intended to have ketchup, just ketchup, like a normal amount of ketchup. And then she'd consolidate what she could and she'd dispose of what she couldn't, and she'd put 2 or 3 reasonable bottles back in the door, and within 6 weeks, 14. Every time, this perfect closed loop, a mystery solved and immediately recreated. Ketchup, infinite and patient, just waiting for the next fridge cleaning day to reveal itself again. We thought it was the funniest thing. We teased her about it relentlessly. Fridge cleaning day. Every single cleaning day, without fail, someone in the family would count the bottles out loud and announce the number like it was a score. 14! A new record. Mom, why do you have 14 ketchups? And she'd look at us with the expression of someone who did not have time for this and also was not entirely sure herself and was choosing not to examine it too closely. Thank you. And could we please move so she could get to the sink? I currently have 11 items in my fridge door that I could not fully account for under oath. 11. I'm not drawing any conclusions. I'm simply noting the number and allowing it to exist in the space between us right now, okay? It happens to you too. Don't deny it. So here's what years of forensics work will teach you. If you let it, motive is almost never interesting. It's not a genius level scheme. It's not a carefully constructed plan, right? It's not the elaborate setup of someone operating several moves ahead. Most of the time, the vast, humbling majority of the time, motive is something embarrassingly ordinary, kind of dressed up in circumstances that made it feel justified in the moment, right? I don't want to deal with it. I thought it would resolve itself. I meant to, but I was tired. And then it was Thursday, and Thursday became the following Tuesday. And now here we are. It seemed fine at the time. Refrigerators are a forensically perfect portrait of exactly that psychology. The intention going in is always good, always. Nobody puts something in a container thinking, I'm going to forget about this completely and discover it 3 weeks from now in a state that raises questions, right? The intention is leftovers, practical, responsible, adult leftovers, money saving. The intention is I will eat this tomorrow and it will be easy and efficient and I will feel good about myself. And then life happens. Not in a way that makes a good story, just pizza happened, or Tuesday happened, or you opened the refrigerator and looked at the container and thought not tonight and closed the door again. And then the container sat there and you ordered something else and the container kept sitting with the patience of something that has nowhere else to be and all the time in the world. And the ketchup multiplied somewhere and all of that. The freezer drawer failed to close again and the ice maker banged again, and the stainless steel recorded every moment of contact like a quiet, meticulous archive of your own fingerprints. I don't know. The container moved from leftovers to situation to evidence without anyone making a decision about it. That's how it always goes. The motive in every cold case I've ever, opened up and read and looked at, in every refrigerator I've ever encountered or been complicit in, it's always the same thing. We were busy, we were tired, we meant well, and we got distracted, and we told ourselves we'd handle it tomorrow. My mom kept 14 bottles of ketchup because she never wanted to run out, because running out meant she hadn't planned well enough. She hadn't provided well enough. Maybe she hadn't managed the household with the competence she held herself to at all times. I don't know. So she bought the ketchup, and she forgot she had ketchup, and she bought more ketchup. My dad probably bought some too. And the ketchup accumulated as, I guess, quiet evidence of how hard she was trying to stay on top of everything. All the time. Without ever being given credit for the sheer volume of things she was staying on top of. She was always managing something. Always anticipating the next need before anyone else had thought to have it. Right? I don't think it's disorganization. It's a person carrying more than their share and filling the gaps before anyone notices there are gaps. I notice now from the position of someone squatting in front of a freezer drawer that will not close. Next to a stainless steel surface that shows every single thing I've ever touched. Next to a container I've walked past 14 times and still not dealt with. I notice. The container has been dealt with. I'm not going to tell you what was in it. Some information is not meant to be shared. Some things you look at and you make a decision about and remove from the premises without documentation or discussion. I wouldn't call it evidence tampering. I think it's efficient case management. I stand by it. The freezer drawer is still not closing all the way. I've accepted this in the way that you accept certain things in life, not with peace exactly, but I guess with this exhaustion of someone who's fought this particular battle enough times to know how it ends. The drawer will not close. It's never closed. It will outlast me, slightly ajar and bothered. I will meet my end, having never once successfully sealed a frozen good to my complete satisfaction. Stainless steel has a smudge on it that survived 3 rounds of the special cloth. I've decided it's part of the unit, permanent. I'm calling it character. Patina, let's call it patina, or evidence of a life being lived in proximity to a refrigerator that I chose and cannot return. Can't wait to replace, maybe soon, and I have only myself to blame for, and I'm making my peace with that, and I'm fine. This is fine. It's all fine. If you're sitting wherever you are listening to this thinking, I don't have a container, I don't have all those bottles of ketchup, my freezer drawer closes completely. My fridge is well organized, clearly labeled, fully audited system, and I'm on top of it all times. Good for you. Happy for you. Not being sarcastic. except I am. But the thing about cold cases, real ones, the ones I have, looked at, worked, whatever, the ones that keep is that they never really care about the crime. They're about the accumulation of small decisions made by ordinary people under ordinary circumstances who told themselves they'd deal with it tomorrow. They're about the containers we don't open and the drawers we stop trying to close and the ketchup we line up on the counter, the salad dressing every 6 weeks. And we look at, how did this happen again? It happened the same way it always happens. One reasonable decision at a time. Label your containers, audit your condiments, and for the love of everything, if you figure out how to get a freezer drawer to close all the way, I've been at this for 11 years and I'm open to the leads. And if you think or say or act like this doesn't happen to you, you're a lying liar who lies through their pie hole. Have a good day.
You've been listening to Unbound Off Script. The script is gone, the chair is empty, and Beth Curry is officially out of here. If you've got something you want her to dive into next time, let us know. Until then, stay curious, stay raw, and keep it unbound. We're out.